37. 26 knots down the angle. 106 interval is a rhino at 5. Good. 207 on glide path on course 1 mile. Good. 207 on glide path on course.
On the 24th of February 1991, a multinational coalition of 38 countries began its ground campaign to liberate Kuwait, following the Iraqi invasion and conquest of the country in August 1990. The ground campaign was preceded by an intense air offensive, which started in mid-January and saw over 2,300 coalition aircraft carry out a month-long offensive against the Iraqi Air Force, dropping over 88,000 tons of explosives and carrying out over 100,000 sorties. The British military played a prominent role in both phases, deploying a total of 53,462 service personnel to the region, making it the third largest contributor to the coalition behind Saudi Arabia and America. Leading the British effort in the ground campaign was the 1st Armoured Division, which began its move forward from Germany to Saudi Arabia in November 1990. For the forthcoming campaign, which the British codenamed Operation Granby, the division had a total of 2,600 armoured vehicles, of which 221 were the Challenger 1 main battle tank. Commanding one of those Challenger 1s was Captain Tim Purbrick of D Squadron, the Queen's Royal Irish Hussars. At 0500 on the 26th of February 1991, 2 days into the ground offensive, Captain Tim Purbrick and his 3 other crewmen were having a short break before they and the rest of their squadron continued their advance forward. For D Squadron, the early morning had been fairly uneventful, besides a brief engagement against a dozen or so Iraqi army vehicles that had been spotted moving across the unit's front in the far distance. Besides this, the situation on the squadron's front remained relatively undisturbed until daybreak, when activity was observed on the Iraqi front line. Peering through his sights, Captain Tim Purbrick began to pick up multiple targets in the far distance. They were Iraqi T-55 tanks. Immediately, D Squadron kicked into action, with Purbrick ordering his crew to their stations and picking out one of the T-55s, which was using a small raise in the ground to protect its hull. The loader, who was only identified as Pete in recollections of the event, put a high explosive squash head round into the breech of the 120mm gun of the Challenger, before the gunner, Trooper Gus Davidson, locked onto the enemy tank and fired. Jolting the tank backwards, the round flew the 3,600 metres, but did not hit the target, hitting instead the raised ground in front of it. Seconds later, Purbrick ordered Pete to load an armour-piercing, fin-stabilised discarding sabot round into the breech. Adjusting his sights, Trooper Davidson fired again at the target, but like the first, the round fell short. Another thin round was loaded, followed by a blast at the end of the barrel as it left for the enemy tank. In the distance, 3.6 kilometres away, a small flash was observed as the round pierced the armour of the Iraqi T-55, causing an internal explosion and blowing the turret off. Looking through his sights, Trooper Davidson called out target to his colleagues, notifying them that the enemy tank had been neutralised. However, there was no time to assess the results, as Captain Purbrick spotted another enemy T-55 directly to his front, some 4,700 metres away. The enemy tank was, theoretically, well beyond the range capable of the Challenger 1, a fact Purbrick and his crew were fully aware of. Nevertheless, Trooper Gus Davidson asked his captain if he could have a shot at the target, to which Purbrick replied with, "Yeah, why not?" With the breech loaded with another thin round, Davidson locked onto the T-55, which was no more than a small black dot in the distance, and fired the shot. 4.7 kilometres away, black smoke rose up from the target. Trooper Gus Davidson had scored a direct hit on the T-55 in one shot, and in the process, had scored the longest tank-on-tank kill ever to be recorded in military history. The exact distance between the Challenger and the T-55 is often the subject of debate, with some stating it was no more than 4 kilometres, whilst others suggest it was up to 5.6 kilometres. However, Captain Tim Purbrick confirms it was 4.7 kilometres. Elsewhere, other Challenger 1s from D Squadron engaged and picked off Iraqi tanks and armoured fighting vehicles that were positioned on the horizon. Estimates state that between 50 to 60 Iraqi tanks and AFVs were destroyed in the 90-minute engagement. On the same day as Trooper Gus Davidson made history by scoring the longest tank-on-tank kill, a detachment of US Marines probed into Kuwait's capital city, where they came into contact with some of the Kuwaiti resistance fighters. The next day, on the 27th of February, coalition ground forces advanced into the capital, effectively liberating Kuwait following 7 months of Iraqi occupation, and just a mere 72 hours after the ground offensive had begun.